Hi. So
It's our last day together.
it is our last day together in Boston, and I'm feeling sad.
I know, you woke up emotional about it.
Well, just like, I'm going home tomorrow. Like, so much is going to happen in your life.
I know. It's going to be really intense.
I know. We went to your doctor's appointment.
We need to be there at 7:30, which was really early.
So early.
Because we've stayed on LA time,
This whole time.
Yeah, so we've been going to bed at like midnight every night.
Or later.
Or later. So we wake up at 6:30 and then go to the doctor, got some blood work done, met with the team. I was glad that Erica was there because, you know, she always asks all the questions. And it's funny because everyone already knew who she was because
funny.
we phoned a friend during my first initial appointment with them. And it was 5:30 a.m. for you and 8:30 for us in Boston. And Erica was just like on the phone asking a million questions. And they're like, oh my God, now you're here.
And we know you.
We know you. So yeah, it was nice to have you there.
It was supposed to just be blood work, and then it was like another meeting with the team.
Yeah, I think it was always supposed to be that, and I just didn't know.
You didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, when it was interesting because when we got there, they're like, we've been emailing about you. Like, you're like famous.
Yeah. I'm also patient number 5, not patient number 6, we learned.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
So like the study that was published in the New England Journal, which is the best journal in the world, is publishing around the first 3 patients.
Right. And now they've slightly changed the protocol
for patient number 4, and then you're going to be on the same protocol as patient number 4.
Yes. And so then with this one, they've introduced doing chemo a few days ahead of the transfusion to sort of suppress your immune system.
Right.
And they actually said that they see that people get a little bit less sick, maybe.
Right. Because like you don't have as big of an immune response.
Yeah, because you've suppressed the immune system.
Right.
But yeah, just sort of went over like the neurotoxicity piece again, and just like they're going to be doing like mental status exams on me.
Oh my gosh, so many times.
Every 15 minutes for the first like 4 hours, and then it moves to like every hour, and then every 4 hours.
And then day 2 will be like 3 times a day.
3 times a day.
But they're going to ask you to write a sentence, name objects, and they said like neurotoxicity can like look really subtle.
Yeah, and
I feel like yours
is me like 10 questions too.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And then ask me to like count backwards.
Yeah, at first they said by 7s.
And I was like, I don't know how to do that normal.
Yeah,
like me pre-brain surgery wouldn't have known how to count.
Like let's do 5s or 10s.
Yeah, like that's so much easier. So yeah, it'll just be like really intense. And they're like, yeah, we're just gonna like, there's gonna be a lot of people in there, and like everyone comes down for the infusion, and yeah, they're just like taking really good care of me.
So, yeah, I mean they have a lot invested in you.
Yeah,
and when this episode comes out, you have already gotten the infusion.
Will I?
Yeah,
maybe it might be delayed 1 more day. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. What's the date?
The 15th would be, it's not going, I will not have gotten the infusion, but I will have been done.
Oh, you're right.
I will be done with the chemo.
You're right. Okay, so chemo, you will have had the chemo, but then when this comes out, will be like tomorrow or the next day you're getting your infusion.
Yeah, so still the biggest part ahead of me, which is scary, but also exciting to like be close to more of the finish line. Not coming home wise, but just like actual treatment wise.
Yeah, you've done so much to like get to this point.
Yeah, and it's like really good that you came here, because up until you came here, I was like pretty sedentary.
I know.
And then you got here, and like we've just been out doing things like all day, every day.
I did not expect that. I honestly thought we'd be like inside the entire time.
I know. Even last night, you're like, can we like watch a movie now?
Yeah, like just let me watch a movie. I just want to sit and do nothing.
Like this is my vacation too.
Yeah. But then when we went to the hospital today, your doctor was like, "Oh, I want you." When I said that we walked 10,000 steps, and I thought she was going to get mad at you.
Same.
She was like, "No, I want you to do that."
She's like, "Oh, that's so great." She's like, "This is perfect because you're going to be spending like 2 weeks in a hospital and like not really moving a ton. Like I can walk around the hospital." They said they have, it tells you how many laps you need to do around the floor to do a marathon.
Right. So 24 laps is a mile.
Yeah. So
you'd have to do a lot of laps.
I mean, yeah, like I'm not planning to do a marathon,
Right.
but like, you know, a couple miles a day.
Yeah, a couple miles a day.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, just I guess staying active, which makes sense. Like being in the best shape you possibly can be, which I'm not, but I'm like pretty close to it, I would say.
We should give like good conversation starters for Hank so that he can keep you entertained for 24 laps.
I know, I was thinking, you know, the Esther Perel game?
No, but it's a couples game.
It's like a couples game, or I don't know, couples. It's like just for people you're close with.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it's called, but it's like a card game and it like prompts you with questions.
Oh, that's good.
To have like deep conversations.
Oh, so I think we should figure out like good 2-person games that you two can play.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think
Like
if you're like
realistically, like I'm gonna not be in my right mind. So like I don't think I can just like play games. I don't think I can just like play Rummy Cube.
not Rummy Cube, but like maybe to like I don't know. I was thinking
Do some like Mad Libs.
Yeah, Mad Libs. You should do Mad Libs. We should bring back the Mad Libs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send you some Mad Libs.
Yeah,
but you can't even like accept packages.
We're trying to figure out the package situation. It's just not. It's not happening.
People are sending you things and you're just not getting them.
Yeah, like I'll get them eventually. People who
I see some sugar software bit. Swedish candy.
Yeah, but we can't because
we're
using the audio on the phone because Hank forgot the microphone.
Right. Okay. I just see it. I'm like, oh, this is a good time.
I know, but we can watch something good tonight.
Like what?
After, I don't know. We watched a Celine Dion documentary yesterday and it was really good.
And I just want to tell her, like, it's okay.
Yeah, we said, like, we would for sure come to your concert.
If you're lip syncing.
Like, not even. If she was just sitting.
We would give her a hug.
Like, we would play her CD and we would just, like, sing along.
Yeah.
Like, we can carry.
We could carry
her through.
The whole audience.
The whole audience would carry her through. Yeah, she put a lot of pressure on herself. And it made me sad.
Like, maybe some great guest for our podcast.
Yeah, Celine Dion, if you're out there and want to do a podcast on your grief, hit us up.
Yeah, we'll be happy to have you on.
So basically we're just recording probably 2 more intro outros because I'm going to be out of commission for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So today's guest.
Yeah, I'm really excited about today's guest.
I really like
because it was someone that I've spoken with and like communicated with, and she helped me, and then we were able to like collaborate on a bunch of things. So it's really interesting to have you meet her as well. And this is Emma from TFMR Mamas.
Yeah, I felt like I got like a deeper insight and like look into your TFMR world.
Yeah,
talking to her and like just knowing that you guys like collaborate on things, and like she started was one of the people who like sort of pioneered the TFMR Awareness Day, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was just like really cool to see how she's used her work, like her personal experience, to like just create a whole community online. This is similar to the way that you have, but I just thought it was so cool.
Well, she's the person who I saw first. I'm like, oh, you can do this. And it really just showed me, like, even though there's all this stigma, there's something so powerful about community. And I felt really safe and like supported by her. And so that was also one of the reasons why I decided to start. Yeah.
Well, because it's interesting. You had met with someone else like originally, and they had sort of encouraged you not to share.
Yeah.
Like they were sort of saying like, oh, like, I don't know, you might not get a great reaction. Like,
yeah. And that was really hard for me because I was going to this person like for reassurance to share.
Yeah.
And then I was met with like, maybe you don't want to yet. And that was really hard.
And I think it's hard when like you see someone else who's sharing online and it's like not exactly what you were going through, but something in the same sort of world. But then they tell you not to share. It like feels shaming.
Yeah, that was like, really hard.
It was really hard. So I'm like so grateful that you found Emma's page because it like validated that like, no, I don't need to stay silent and like have shame about this.
Right.
And when you hear the episode, you'll understand why she's so great. Like,
she was just so sweet to like you. And like,
I know.
I was like, you could just tell that she cares like so much about you and like hadn't even met you before. And she's just such a wonderful person.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the first conversations we had where it felt like in real time, we were acknowledging the feelings like in the room, the virtual room, which hadn't really happened yet before.
Right. Like this, you were like giving feedback and it was like very real and raw.
Yeah.
Like she was saying something very vulnerable and like you responded in a really vulnerable way.
Yeah. And then she was like saying like, I don't even know you. And I just like want to like reach my arms through the computer and hug you.
Yeah.
And like, it just felt like the first time, like it felt like a therapeutic process in a way, you know, like usually when you're having conversations with people, you're not talking about like the way that they're responding in that moment to you.
Right.
I mean, I think we do that, but like most people probably don't do that. But it was the first time, and it's happened much more since then, where I felt like there was a shift, and it was like, oh, we're like acknowledging like how unique and important this space is. And we're three people that have experienced real grief and different and similar in ways. And like, I don't know, I just felt like a good demonstration of how you can support someone, even if you don't know them that well.
And like get feedback, like incorporated.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like really loved that. And I feel like it made me think moving forward, like I want to make sure we're doing more of that in our conversations because I think it's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really wonderful. And I know everyone will really love her because she's just like such a great person.
Yeah.
And it's done so much on so many different levels for different communities. So here's Emma. Enjoy the conversation.
So welcome to Grief Street, Emma. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited, if that's like a kind of weird word in this space, but I'm excited about your podcast and lovely to meet you, Jordy. Obviously, it's
so
the
nice
first
to
time
meet
I met you today. And thanks for having me.
Yeah. So can you share, I guess, a little bit more about your own baby loss story with Willow and also when you decided to start TFMR Mamas?
Sure. So I'm Emma. I'm about to be 43. Oh, I might cry about that a little bit. No way. It's fine. To ask my husband how old I was or was about to be. Anyway.
Yep.
I will say really quickly, Erica's 6 months younger than me. And I used to always be like, I can't believe you're 29 and I'm 30. Like, that's so annoying. But when you get brain cancer, it changes your perspective. And now I look at it as I get to be whatever age I am. And so I don't know if that's helpful to you, but it was helpful to me because I always felt very like nostalgic and sad about getting older.
Yeah, that is very true. And like, this is why you're doing the podcast, right? Because grief changes how you look at everything. I know. And I know that the griefs that we have are completely and utterly different. And the one thing that I'm hearing is actually it completely reshapes how we view so many things, right? So an amazing example of just that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to have experienced the same thing as someone to understand the feeling.
Yeah. So, yes, I'm Emma. I'm British and from Brighton. And I now live in Dubai. And me and my husband went through a good couple of years of like fertility issues. I knew when I was like 34, I think, that I went in to get some eggs frozen. Thought I'll just hop in, get my insurance policy, get my eggs frozen, be really easy. And didn't expect to come out with a infertility diagnosis. I thought I was hopping in and doing like the bank your egg thing. So didn't even give it a second thought, and then came out with the news that actually I had a diminished ovarian reserve and getting 10 eggs would be really difficult, and that's really what they aimed for. So I was told that I'd need 3 or 4 rounds, and at the time that was like $10,000 US per round. I didn't have a spare $40,000 just lying around, so you know,
most of us don't.
No. So I was in a position where I just had to leave it to life and what would be, and wait for when my husband and I were ready to try and have a family. So when I was 38, so 4 years later, we decided we were ready. So we went straight into a fertility clinic and got cracking and got pregnant the first time. So I was like one of those really annoying people that enters the fertility world, gets pregnant first time.
Yeah.
Really pisses everyone else off. That person, that was me.
Isn't that funny how you were that person at first and then...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then I got humbled quickly.
Right.
And it quickly changes.
Oh, yeah. Sat down and taught a good lesson or two. And then I had a very early loss. And that was when the hards started coming. And then I had 3 more rounds after that. Each of them failed. And then on my 5th round, I got pregnant with Willow. And I was super nervous at every scan, thinking it was obviously going to go wrong because of the infertility, because of the early loss before. I'd heard other people talk about miscarriages, and I thought, that's going to be my story, because I've been to the toilet, I've wiped, there's no blood, so my story is going to be a miscarriage. I'm going to go in, they're going to say, sorry, there's no heartbeat. That's going to be my story, even though I didn't want that to be my story. And everything kept telling me it was okay and fine. And because we were in fertility treatment, we had scans at 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks. So every week we're like watching the baby grow.
And you're seeing a heartbeat.
Yeah, every week.
So you're like hitting those milestones.
Yeah, every week. And then on 12 and a half weeks, we went for the NT scan. And that's when it all started to sort of crumble around, really. And they just said, I was terrified they were going to say there was no heartbeat. And when I heard the heartbeat and I could see the baby moving around, kicking arms and legs, and hear the heartbeat, I was so relieved. And then she just said, I can't not tell you what I can see. There's something really wrong with your baby. And she then cleared her diary and called me back in, because the scan takes like an hour or something. So she cleared her diary. She went from being able to see me for a couple of minutes to like seeing me. And so she did the scan, and unfortunately our baby Willow had a cystic hygroma on her head, the size of her head. She had fluid all over her chest, her abdomen. And the doctor said that she thought it was either Pato's or Turner syndrome. And I'm sort of thinking at this point, what can be done about these things? You know, like you see things, you think, oh, things can be operated on in utero, and you start thinking about all these types of things. And she very quickly said, you know, the way that your baby's presenting at the moment, because of all the fluid, I don't think you will make it past 28 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
So I'm at this point like,
what were you thinking?
Like, just how can we swear on this podcast?
Oh yeah,
yes.
You can swear.
Oh yeah.
Like, how the fuck is this? Like, is this some sick joke that's happening? Like, how can we be in this situation, given everything that we've gone through to get to this point? How can I now be sitting here listening to a doctor start talking about the fact that some people don't continue their pregnancies with babies that are like this?
I'm sure that's such a surreal feeling.
Well, yeah. And I remember texting one of my really close friends saying, you know, I think I was just like two days off 13 weeks or something. And I remember saying to her, how am I sitting here Googling how late can I have a termination for such a wanted pregnancy, for such a wanted baby? We picked out the buggy already. We picked out all these things. I hadn't bought all of them, but we had already chosen them. Like, we had them all in an album ready, like our hope list, you know, like our faith like purchase list,
right?
And so anyway, and there I was Googling abortions. How late can you have an abortion? What does that mean? What does it look like? Do I have to be awake? Will I be asleep? Like,
so terrible.
because of my personality, I like to plan, not to plan, but I like to know what the disaster situation looks like. So I feel like I've prepared myself for the worst. And then if the best or the better happens, then it's a bonus type, like great. But at least I've got my head around what the absolute worst can look like. So of course I did look at all these things. And anyway, we were waiting.
What did you find?
Because of my... Well, just, yes, that, you know, depending on where you were in the world, depended very much on what was available. So I quickly realised that I'd have to fly back to the UK, which is an 8-hour flight, if I wanted to be asleep, because the surgical expertise doesn't exist where I am.
Wow.
And for certain diagnoses I could here, and for certain diagnoses I couldn't. At the time I didn't know what that was. So anyway, I'd had my genetics testing done because I'm a geriatric mother.
Oh, wow.
Love that term.
Don't you love it? Isn't it just the best?
So kind.
It's so nice. So this had just been done as like a matter of course. Like it wasn't like I'd opted in. It was like, this is your age, so therefore this is what we do. So I'd already had that done, and I was waiting on those results to come back. And while I was waiting for the results to come back, I went and saw my other doctor again, and I said, you know, what does this look like? You know, she said, well, if the baby is poorly with one of these conditions, and because of the fluid, the likelihood is the heart will stop before you get to 28 weeks. I said, so if I continue, what does that look like? She said, well, you just have to keep coming back every single week, and then we'll tell you if the baby's heart's still beating.
Wow. Oh
I said,
gosh.
so I come back every week, and basically I'm coming back every week for you to tell me if the baby's dead or not. Is that what you're telling me? She's like, yeah. And I was like, and then if the baby has died, I have a stillbirth. She's like, yeah. I was like, how the fuck?
Yeah, like what
all shit
terrible
options.
Yeah.
Like, is this for real? Like, so anyway, so I had that information. I had the information that, you know, if she was born by some miracle alive, that maybe she wouldn't live very long anyway with the presentation that she was having. So we waited for the results to come back. I went to work the next day, sat a load of meetings with...
How did you do that?
Yeah.
I don't even know, just on autopilot. What else could I do? I just was waiting for results.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It was in limbo land, right? It's not like we had enough information to make a decision. So I went to work and just did all my meetings. And in between every meeting, I went and sat in the lobby and cried, and then went back and did another meeting. And that's just how it went that day. Anyway, the results came in, and she had Edwards syndrome. So I was then told we went to see a genetic counsellor for another opinion, because I was like, I really need to know that this is the right thing to do, because we have tried so hard to get to this space. I can't make this decision lightly, which I know nobody can, but it felt even more critical that we had more than two sets of information. So I was then told that if she did make it to birth alive, that she would likely die within hours or days. So then at that point I'm thinking, okay, so if I carry on, I go every week to see if the baby's died inside me, and if the baby has died, I have to have a stillbirth, because obviously you just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the baby gets bigger and bigger and bigger every week. So okay, or I hope for a miracle and then the baby's born alive, but the baby's going to die anyway, most likely. So, or I choose, you know, to end my pregnancy.
Did they offer you termination as an option?
Where I am, no. But all they said was some people choose to not continue, and some people choose to continue. And they just gave me the information. And I wasn't pushed one way or another at all. I was given very honest, factual information about the condition that she had, what that really meant for her life in utero, what that would mean for potential life if she was born. They said that, you know, even if she did make it to somewhere near term, she might likely die through the birthing process itself. So, yeah,
It's like
I'm
you
just
knew
kind of
loss
gearing
was going
myself
to be a
up for
part of this.
Absolutely.
Either
Yeah,
whatever decision you made.
exactly. And it's just like when, right?
Yeah.
Which I also want to say to anyone that's gone through TFMR, I know isn't part of everybody's story. It's not always when. And I just want to fully acknowledge how complex that can be, because I don't want people to listen to this. And I know it can feel difficult when people listen to other people with terminal diagnosis on their babies. But so I just want to acknowledge that there's extra complexities when it's a grey diagnosis.
Mine was more of a grey diagnosis. It was like, it could happen and it could not. There was definitely a spectrum severity. So I talk about that also in the gray land. But even when you know it's a terminal illness, it doesn't make it an easy decision.
No, I mean, I think there's more clarity around the what ifs.
Right.
But even then, you're still looking for the possibility of things working out. So you still almost hunt out the grey because you're trying to be absolutely sure that what you're doing is the right decision. So you almost go hunting for the grey, even if there's not much grey to be found, I think, with a more black and white diagnosis, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from desperately holding on to some type of hope that maybe we can do something to make this okay. Right. I think. So anyway, we decided, me and my husband spoke, and my doctor was also very conscious of my age, and we didn't have any living children at the time, and she was very conscious of our journey with trying to have a living child, and if we did continue, what did that then look like for us trying again for a living child, and my age, and all of these things. So all of these things into consideration, we decided that for us, the right thing to do was to end our pregnancy. And I and my husband decided that for me to be asleep at the time felt like the only way we could manage. Now, working in the space that I work in, with the hindsight that I have, a different decision I think I would likely come to. But with the information I had at that time, and the resources I had at that time, and the grief education I had at that time, which was slim.
There is none of that grief education, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just thought this is the only way I can cope, is if I'm asleep. And for that, I had to go to the UK. So that was an 8-hour flight. And,
I want to pause there, because we hear in the US of people needing to travel across state lines. You were pushed out of your country. What was that experience like for you at that time?
I mean, the thing is, and I want to say this because I want to be fair to where I am in the world. For Edwards syndrome, you can have a termination for medical reasons here, but I would have had to have been awake. And at the time, I just didn't know or see how I could cope with that.
Sure.
I thought it would just be a push too far, and I was already broken, and I thought that would absolutely, utterly break me and finish me off.
Yeah.
So...
And do you mean like you would have had to gone through labor and delivery?
Yes. And at the time, I just had to pick the way that I thought I could survive it, and that was the only way I thought I could at that time. And the reason is because terminations aren't widely available here. They're available for certain circumstances. The medical skill set isn't here for a surgical termination, but the medical skill set is here for an induction, right?
I see.
That's where we sit. It's not necessarily to do with the reason or...
Got it.
So for the way that I wanted to have my termination for medical reasons, I had to go to the UK. So... Which is like a whole other layer, right? Because I got to the airport.
Right, you're like traveling to go do this thing that you so don't want to have to do.
And like I got to the airport, and I was just under 14 weeks pregnant at this point. I had to like find a clinic that would hospital that would take me, and I didn't want to go in the clinic route. So luckily, because of COVID, our wedding got cancelled in Vegas, so we got a refund. So I used the refund money to pay to go to a private hospital so that Gareth could be with me, because the clinic I had to be on my own. I would have woken up this is in England, I would have woken up and they would have handed me my baby in a plastic pot to go and deal with.
Oh my God.
And I didn't want that. I really wanted to have Gareth with me. I wanted to wake up with Gareth with me. I wanted someone to look after our baby with respect and love, and to help and assist by getting them to the funeral director, to the crematorium, without me having to carry my dead baby in a plastic pot from the hospital the minute I woke up. I just couldn't do that. So
that's terrible.
That was
devastating.
What I was dealing with. So we spent a big chunk of our wedding money on going to a private hospital in London. They looked after us beautifully. They were just incredible. And I believe it made all the difference to my experience about not adding extra trauma to the situation.
Yeah.
So we flew, but that was difficult because, of course, I'd been told that the baby's heartbeat could stop. So before I got on the plane, I went to the doctor to check if the baby's heartbeat was going or not. And I got in the chair and the heartbeat was beating, and I was relieved and then devastated all at the same time, because I thought,
because you knew what that meant.
Got to make this, this is still in my hands, right? There's a huge part of me that just wanted it to be taken out of my hands, and it's completely and utterly happened to me, so I had no part in it.
Yeah.
Then I could say, well, this just happened to me, as opposed to, yes, I've had to go through these very intentional decisions to make this decision, sign the paper that says I want to end my pregnancy.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I relate to that so much. Like, I just wanted a miscarriage so badly, which is wild after we both experienced miscarriage, of now being in the position to have hoped for a miscarriage, which is just so devastating.
Yeah. Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. And yet, through TFMR Mamas, the work I do there, I would say 90% more of TFMR parents have shared exactly the same thing with me.
I'm sure.
So anyway, I got to the airport, and that whole thing of, like, I was visibly looking very pregnant, and someone offered, like when you get to the airport, there's those priority seats, for people that are pregnant. Mm-hmm. Or is it, and they offered me a seat. Someone sat down and said, you take this seat. And I purposefully wore baggy clothes that no one would see. I don't know who I was kidding, but anyway. And Gareth said to me, Emma, take the seat, because he said, your hips, you're in agony. I've been in agony with my hips since about 8 weeks pregnant. He said, take the seat. And I said, I can't. And he said, why? I said, because I'm not going to be pregnant soon, and it's all my own doing. So I will not take the seat. And I just wouldn't take it.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, as I'm walking through, people are like, and I'm not.
What another layer of grief and trauma, right? Of, like, knowing that you're doing the best possible thing, but then that, like, guilt and shame just, like, lives deep within our core.
Mm-hmm. And I went here because obviously it was at the end of October, and in Dubai it's lovely and sunny, and in England it's not. And I had nothing warm to wear, so I had to go to a department store here and buy maternity trousers, because I had nothing warm to put on my legs that fit me. So I'm buying maternity trousers. Everyone's congratulating me in the shop. I just thought, this is like, what?
So horrible.
What is going on here? How can this be happening? So I'm just like grinning, like, oh yeah, thanks,
Wow.
Like, got outside, just burst into tears, just all these little things that nobody sees. And then of course I had my doctor's words in my ears of, the baby's heart could stop. Then it dawned on me, I'm going to be on a plane for 8 hours, and I'm going to be in the airport at least 2 hours either side. That's 12 hours. And I thought, oh my God, what if the baby's heartbeat stops whilst I'm on this journey, and then I have a miscarriage?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And I thought, so I packed a miscarriage bag.
Wow.
And I'm just like, is this actually... So I'm thinking, okay, what happens if I do? Okay, well, I better wear some big period pants. I better take some baby wipes so that I can wipe myself, because I'm thinking about aeroplane toilets, so I can wipe up. And then what if I pass the baby? Okay, I'm going to need a plastic container with a lid that's leak proof. Okay, right. So I'm packing all this stuff to get on an 8-hour flight, because the reality is it's 2 hours at the airport either side plus an hour travel. So like I'm at 14 hours at this point. A lot could happen in 14 hours, I guess, in pregnancy loss. So
Right, it's like you wanted a wedding.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking.
yeah.
You wanted a wedding, and now you're spending the money on this decision that you don't want to have to be making. Mm-hmm. And there's just like little traumas all along the way that are just a reminder of this decision that you have to make.
Mm-hmm. And just like, how are we even here, you know?
I wanted to ask about your husband, how, like, what this experience was like for him and for you guys as a couple, in like learning about the diagnosis, making the decision, and then the aftermath.
I know we did it very differently. And I think we were quite good at allowing that to just be, and not taking it personally, like as a reflection of how much either of us cared about our baby or cared about each other. His way was to go out and be sociable and distract, and you know, that's his way. I hid inside for a really long time.
Yeah.
He didn't rush me. He didn't tell me what to do. Every now and again he'd suggest something and I'd say no, and he'd respect that. And equally, I didn't come at him for doing it totally differently. And I think that's been our saving grace, really, is just that, just accepting that it's okay that it looks utterly different, and it doesn't signify anything that he didn't care, or it's just that that's what he needed to do to be okay. And that's what I needed to do to be okay. And they looked completely different.
Which is so common.
Yeah, it's so common. But the other thing that I also know is common is that people can get very like wounded emotionally from that partner behaving differently to how they would grieve. And they can take it as, yes, you're alone in your grief, but guess what? You are alone in your grief in so many ways, because nobody grieves the fucking same anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's so much of this that is so incredibly lonely in grief, especially when it's with your partner, and especially when they're doing it differently. And people can, we didn't, because we'd done a ton of therapy before this happened to us, thank goodness. So we learn how to hold space for difference. I think that's the only thing that carried us through in the way that it did. But I noticed, and old Emma and Gareth, we would have been utterly upset, offended. I would have attached loads of meaning to it. Like, he doesn't care about me, he didn't give a shit about the baby. I would have said and done all of those things if we hadn't had 5 years of therapy behind us as individuals and as a couple.
That's so amazing to have that foundation of going into something you could have never prepared for.
Mm-hmm. And it was for therapy for something totally different. But I do believe that a lot of therapy work is grief work.
Yeah, and it's giving you the skills for how to navigate when things go differently than you had imagined they would.
Yeah. And when you don't show up, when your partner doesn't show up how you would want them to show up, which generally you want people to show up how you would show up, right?
Yeah.
Why can't they do if I was them, I would do this, right? So we put a lot of that on each other. Mm-hmm. So I think when you can not do that, you'll probably both fare a bit better. But it's not easy to not take it personally, which I also recognise. So yeah, so we very differently. When we heard the news, very different. I numb out, right? When I first hear bad news, I go into like practical mode. So I went into like practical mode, and he was really not okay.
Yeah.
And then once all the arrangements were in place, then I fall apart.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of coming out, you know.
It's like you both balance each other out, which if you were both grieving in the same exact way possible, that's probably not the most effective either.
Yeah, that would be really hard.
Absolute shambles.
Yeah.
Honestly, it would have been an absolute shambles. Yeah. So yeah, when a crisis hits in our life, Gareth or I, whatever it is, I tend to be like initially quite okay on the outside. And then once the crisis has passed or the plan's in place for the crisis, then I spectacularly fall apart. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. And it happens in all other stresses in our relationship. I'm like, right. And he's like, oh my God, and then once the plan's in place, then I fall apart.
Yeah. So
it's like you have your distinct roles.
Yeah, we do.
And then at the airport, so you didn't have a miscarriage, I'm assuming.
No. So we got back to England in the middle of COVID lockdown. We had special permission to come into the country for medical treatment as a British citizen, sorry. So, and they looked after us beautifully, and they looked after Willow beautifully. They liaised directly with the funeral directors. She had a cremation, which the funeral director called me and said, does this date work for you? And at the time I was horrified. I was like, why are you even telling me?
Yeah.
Why would I even want to go? Like I went through this repulsion phase of like, I even remember like almost throwing the phone at my mum and going, Mum, deal with it. I don't even know why they're phoning me to tell me there's a fucking cremation. Why on earth would they tell me that? My mum's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I've got it. I'm like losing my shit.
I mean, it's like you're postpartum, that you're grieving. You like traveled to different countries with your baby, and now you don't have your baby. So I feel like at that point, everything else crumbles.
Yeah. I was just like repulsed is a good word. Like a complete aversion. It's like I wanted it all to just disappear.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't just make it disappear, but any sort of, even her being nice to me on the phone, she's like, and what are your wishes? And do you want anything? But I was like, I don't want anything fucking red. Like, I was just and I was angry, really, really angry. Wow. How dare you phone me and tell me that there's a cremation? Like, which now I look on and think, oh my God, why didn't I go? Now I would love to have gone,
Yeah.
We are so removed from, right? Like you've had so much exposure to like heading the organization of TFMR Mamas. You've had so much exposure to grief in TFMR, but it's like no one has that much exposure at the time their baby dies.
You make the best choice with the information that you have at that time.
Definitely. And then, and now I do remember she spoke to my mum because I said, I don't want to speak to them ever again. Which now I say it, I think, oh my God, I don't want to speak to them ever again. Like they've just done something really awful, and all they did was really look after Willow. Really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And my mum did say, once I had come out of that phase, she did say, I do need to tell you that she did phone me, and she did say that they stood and said a little prayer, and even, which now I really appreciate, because I think, I wasn't there. So I feel really grateful that someone did do something in the moments when I just wasn't able to.
That's really beautiful. Did you end up taking her ashes back with you on the plane?
So I didn't on that trip. I went back to Dubai, and then her cremation was whilst I was here. And then when I went back again, which was just like a month later, then my mum had driven about 3 hours something to collect the ashes for me and taken them to her house. And when I then came back a month later, that's when I then took them home, and I was ready to collect them at that point. I think it probably took me about 2 weeks to be like, oh my God, I really, really want them with me, and I need them with me, and I need them with me now. So by the time I got back, which was another couple of weeks later, I was really ready to receive them. I think everything was starting to settle a bit, like the shock of receiving the news, being on a plane, my pregnancy ending, coming back on a plane, with my body very different, no baby, and then that all settling, then I was like, okay, now I need my baby back. Like,
right, how do I feel connected to her?
Yeah. So I was really ready then.
Yeah, I just think the idea of like traveling again, going to the airport, doing this 14-hour journey with your with Willow and then traveling back with her ashes is just so tragic.
Yeah, well, that was really hard. So like the journey back straight after the TFMR wasn't as hard as the journey back with her ashes.
Yeah.
And so like when I then, a month later, when I flew again from Dubai back to England, that journey was really hard because, of course, the last time I did that journey, I was pregnant.
Right. It makes you like rethink,
all
like
those
I can't
triggers.
sit on that chair anymore. Like no one's going to offer me that seat at the airport.
Yeah. And then coming back with her ashes was harder than the journey of coming back after the TFMR. Because honestly, I think after the TFMR, we were only in the country about 4 days. And after saying goodbye, and then we were on a plane. So I think I was just completely shell-shocked by the whole situation.
Yeah.
I hadn't really had time to process anything. So by the time I went back for that next trip, I had a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but a lot more comparatively to actually go, okay, this is my reality, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that part after all of the, especially if you're someone who's like a planner and like you go into fight mode when something bad happens, then when everything settles, that part is so challenging. Because you're like, oh, now I have to figure out how to live my life with this having happened. How do I do that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that part for me always feels a bit like tumbleweed because it's like free falling. The crisis point, because of the upbringing I've had and other elements of my life, I'm quite familiar with, you know. I'm quite used to a crisis and then the fight. And I'm almost more comfortable in that place.
Yeah.
But it's the after bit where you're like, oh.
Yeah, picking up the pieces, dealing with things head on.
That is definitely the most challenging part for me, for sure.
I can relate to that.
After you lost Willow and you're back in Dubai and you've collected her ashes, I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, that it wasn't that long between losing her and then creating TFMR Mamas.
No, it wasn't. So I, before that, had been running women's support groups, peer-to-peer support groups for trauma recovery and sexual trauma and things like this. And I'd had an amazing mentor who'd mentored me for like a couple of years. And then she ran all these groups. She said, would you like to lead some of these groups? And I was like, God, I'd love to, you know, I'd love to. She said, you could, you know, she said, you're ready to be that 2 steps ahead person. I'd love it if you would to, you know, facilitate these groups. So I did, and I loved it. And what I loved about it was so personal, and therapy has been great, but being in those spaces, it helped me put those things into practice, especially because some of the people in the group, some of what they would say when I was part of it, not leading it, was quite confronting to my own stuff. So then I was able to like put in all of the stuff I was learning with my therapist, like kind of into action, but in a really safe space. So it was confronting, but not too challenging, because I knew they were safe people. So it was like, I just thought, God, this is just like amazing, you know. And those women in that group changed my life forever. And I didn't feel alone anymore with what was really, really tough that shame had told me I was on my own with previously. And I realized actually I'm not.
You're not alone at all.
Like such a gift. Like, wow, like completely life-changing for me. So with the TFMR, I was looking for something similar. So I could find forums, I could find charities that, you know, dedicated in the UK and some that incorporated in other areas. But I couldn't find like these dedicated pods where you may be stuck together for 6 months, a year, sometimes even 2 years, which is the groups I was experienced in. It wasn't like a course. It was like you grew together.
Where you're creating these like meaningful relationships.
Yes. Like some of these women that I was, for the topics before TFMR, I've shared more with them than I shared with anyone in my entire life.
Wow. What a safe space. to have.
Oh, so transformative. And in doing so, unpacked a load of other stuff that I wasn't even thinking would be unpacked in that group, but did. And I know everyone else in those spaces feels the same. And my mentor is just incredible. I've got so much to thank her for. So I just thought, this is like so much of what I experienced in those groups, which is trauma and grief. I can see working in this space, and some of the daily tools that we were using, I was like, this could be perfect for this space. So I just put out, and I've been sharing everything about our fertility journey on Instagram. So I've been completely open about it. So as the bad news was coming in, I was sharing it real time, not because I suddenly thought I'm going to share it, because I was already sharing it. So it
that was
became
just
my
part
daily
of your
norm,
right?
To just what's happening today in the pregnancy or my infertility journey, or so it just wasn't even like a conscious thought. It was just like, just keep doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And in doing so, like, people from all around the world started messaging saying, this happened to me 10 years ago. I've never told anybody.
Wow.
Oh my God, I've just stepped out the doctors. I've just been told there's something wrong with my baby.
Wow.
And I was just like, what on earth is going on here? So,
Like you saw you weren't
clearly a
alone
need here
in this experience.
yeah. But at the same time, I was also going through it real time. And once I got back, I suddenly thought, you know what? I tried to find a group like the one that I ran for other topics, and I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So I thought, I know, I'll put out a shout out on my Instagram, see if anyone wants to come on Zoom and just have a chat. So I did, and what happened was, I think I filled up about 20 groups of 5 people in about 2 months, and there was, I think I put 5 or 6 slots per group, and I just staggered them over, a number of weeks, and they all filled up. And I just thought, this is mad. Like, people want to connect.
Yes.
People are desperate to connect in a safe place. And so anyway, then I did that, and I thought, I can't keep this up. I'm exhausted, because I'm exhausted from my own grief. Plus we were prepping for another round of fertility treatment. So I thought, I know, I'll just start up another Instagram page, because I was spending about 6 hours a day replying to people, and I was tired.
Of course, it's exhausting.
So it was amazing and tiring. So I just thought, I'll set up this other page, and I went back through all of my stories that I was posting real time as we were getting bad news, as we were making decisions, and I started taking all of the things that I had said on my stories or in my posts, and like just taking like one sentence and just posting it as a quote, and that's all I did on this page. And it just suddenly like snowballed into what it is like, and I just thought, this is
wow,
like, it just happened like that. And then other people started sending me things that they were thinking, and I said, would you mind if I posted it? And they were like, sure. And so then I post their words. It wasn't just my words, it was like, I wanted this page to not be my page. Like, this is us, right?
Yeah.
I love how something in how to help your own healing journey ended up helping others and transformed and evolved to what it is today. Because I can't believe that's how it started, was just to use sharing. And now it's this spot for thousands of parents who are struggling in losing their baby to a TFMR.
Yeah. And the thing that I learned really quickly was that I think the thing that became really, and it still is really important to me, is that TFMR Mamas doesn't just embody one person's story. It has to be a collective. It has to be. And people I didn't know much about TFMR, right? I just knew how I felt, and then I started to learn how other people felt, and that's all I knew. And I just thought, if we can share the unspeakable thoughts that we have and shine light on it, the less shame can't live in the light, right? Only lives in the dark. So that was my goal with it. And I started to learn there's all different types of reasons why people end up in this space, all different diagnoses, health of the person that's pregnant, mental health reasons. I've learned so much, and I hope that people in this space feel that there is no judgment on how you or why you ended up in this space, and that we're all in this space as loving parents, and that's all that fucking matters. And that really is, I feel very, very strongly about that. And there is no hierarchy, there is no better or worse reason, or that just cannot be, it just cannot exist. If you're going to truly help people, that just can't exist. So and
that's coming from you too, with like having a fatal diagnosis, and to really like smash that hierarchy of termination is really empowering for a lot of the parents who come to you, and just know that they belong no matter what.
Yeah, because otherwise how do people own their truth if they're not safe to own their truth, right? It's just not possible. So you have to, and I want to, and I mean it, and I really believe it. And you know, for example, when I did that article that you were in as well, Erica, for the Washington Post, you know, I saw the online one, and I had a brief look at the murky comment section. And I quickly slipped out of it. Some of the things people were saying, you know, like, and I just thought, no, you just have no idea. And it just fired me up even more. I just thought, all you've done is fuel my fire for my reason why. Like, you've just made me go harder, you know.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just backfired. If you thought you were going to deter me, you've done completely the opposite.
And it's like quite amazing how, I don't know if amazing's the right word. I mean, I wish I didn't need to know you, although I do really have so much love for you, that I connected with you.
Like, I hate that I met you, but I quite like you.
Yeah. And I went to one of your support groups. I think it was 1 week. I was like 1 week after Shayla died. I don't even remember coming on. I think I was crying the entire time. But then we were able to connect in another way. And I'm like, here I am connecting with someone who lives in Dubai. Like, that doesn't, our space is just the safest and most welcoming of spaces. It's the worst club to join. But I just felt like so honored to know you, and to connect with you around the world is just such a unique situation.
It's so special.
I can just imagine people like coming across your page and just being like, oh my gosh, thank God someone else thought this, you know, thank God someone else has gone through this. I'm not alone in this, right? And then to find out that there's these support groups that they can join where they can, you know, make meaningful relationships with other birthing parents that have been through the same thing. I just feel like that is so special and much needed.
It is. And I get pictures from people that have connected in group who live in different countries, and all of a sudden they're on holiday together somewhere, like 2 years later, you know. And I'm like, and I cry every single time. Every time someone sends me a picture, you know, like I've got someone from the States and someone from Ireland, and they're on a beach somewhere, and I'm just like,
that's amazing.
You know, it's just amazing. And it's powerful when people are able to connect in such a safe way and then build something with a stranger that becomes a lifetime love.
Right.
And it's just, it blows my mind, and I cry every single time someone sends me a message or sends me a picture, like, because they've built this safe friendship with somebody. I just think it's just amazing.
It's so special. And like with TFMR Mamas, you have the Instagram page, you have the support groups, you have stories that people can read, you have a membership, like a monthly membership that people can join, and you created TFMR Awareness Day. Like, you have really like led this space, and I know that I felt like I could share because of you. And I think you've really set the stage for people getting into the space of professionally sharing or personally sharing, and so much of that is because of what you've done.
Thank you. It's such a lovely thing to say.
And I'm grateful as like someone supporting her friend going through a TFMR. Like I looked at your page to figure out like, what can I say? How can I be there? Like, you know, how can I better understand her experience? And so I'm sure it's so very helpful to the people who are experiencing it themselves, but so helpful to someone who didn't know where to begin to support her friend.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, when I get messages from people who are wanting to support someone going through this. It's so moving to me, because one of the biggest feedbacks that I get from people is that their closest, they feel like aliens with their closest people. Yeah. And that's like the other loss. Not only have they just lost their baby, but they feel like they've lost these friendships that they thought they could absolutely count on to be their rock through this. And they realise, not all the time, but in a lot of instances, I couldn't be further away from this person if I tried. Like we're on different planets right now. Yeah. And of course, they're then devastated because this is the person they would really want to be able to have the capacity to help them. Of course. And they just can't, you know? So when someone messages me going, this has just happened, what can I just think it's just such a beautiful gift of love and friendship to try and step into a space to try and understand it when you're not going through it yourself. Yeah. And it's not super, super common, actually. It's more often the other way from what people tell me.
I think so. Yeah. People, and this is why we created the podcast too. It's like people don't know what to say. They don't want to say the wrong thing. So I think a lot of times they like put distance there, and that distance feels really, really lonely.
And, you know, to be honest with you, Jordy, like even being on the phone call with you today, like I know that we're talking about grief, but there's a big part of me that all I want to do actually is just put my arms through the screen and give you the biggest fucking hug and just go, mate, I'm so fucking sorry that this is your situation.
It's a big bummer.
And like, there's fucking nothing I can do about it. And that feels fucking shit.
Yeah, it does.
Right? And it does. You know, and I want to be able to say the right thing, and I don't know what to say. And
that right there, that's it. That's all someone has to do, is just say, I don't even know what to say, but I love you and I'm sad that this is your situation and I'm here for you in whatever way you need me to be. It doesn't have to be complicated, but I think people do feel so much pressure around saying the right thing that they end up not saying anything.
Yeah. And to be honest, even in this conversation, I've felt a little bit of that. One, because it's the first time I've met you, right? And I want to get to know you, and I don't like who's Jordy, and you know, and at the same time I want to acknowledge everything that's going on for you, but I don't really have the first clue about what that actually looks like or feels like for you, right? So I'm scared of saying the wrong thing because, you know, I have my connections with Erica and I know she's fucking awesome, and if you're her best friend, then that means by default you're probably fucking awesome as well, right? So, you know, there you go. So
I appreciate that.
But it just goes to show you, right, like even here I've had that like not elephant in the room feeling, but a little bit within me. Not because I don't give a shit, quite the opposite, right?
It's the opposite.
Completely the opposite.
And I just love that's the whole point of this, is like, we're three people who are like mental health. We're very in the mental health know, and we still have those feelings. So like, imagine how the rest of the world or the people in your life are feeling who don't have those skills, and who are maybe even more is at stake if they're really close to you and they're just like terrified to mess it up. So that's why I just always encourage people, if you're going through something hard, like give the people around you grace, because most people are trying to do the best that they can.
Yeah, that is very true.
And we definitely talk about that in group like quite a lot, how you know, because of course people, especially in the really early times, are just so devastated, and then when people then don't show up for them as well, it's hurtful, right? And people are hurt and upset by it, and they feel like a sense of betrayal and let down and all of these things. And there's a time and a place for me to say as well, you know, like people are probably trying to do their best. Like sometimes people don't need to hear that.
Of course.
But, you know, at the right time, we can explore that and talk about that in group when people are, you know, when you can see and feel that they're in the space to kind of explore other truths to the situation. But what I tend to find, and what people tend to say to me who are supporting people going through this, is I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to look after them. They don't seem to, everything I do doesn't seem to work. You know, this is what people tell me. I'm sure that's what a lot of people thought around me at the time too. You know, my husband, probably the first candidate, was like, I'm doing everything, nothing works.
We don't even know how to help ourselves. So it's like, if we don't know what to do for ourselves. Yes.
Yeah. And that's the other thing we talk about, like, on on the other side, you know, like as you of bad news, right? As you start to, the bad news starts to settle and you start to go, oh my gosh, this is my reality, whatever that is. We are different people, right? And I say, like, I am forever changed and forever rearranged, and I can never go back, because that would mean that thing, like, none of that happened, and it did, right? And it has, and it still is. So it is what it is. But I also think that as I was emerging out of this, I had no idea who I was becoming. So I said to my husband, you know, he said to me, not only did I lose my baby, I lost my wife. And that's really what he felt. And there's elements of his wife he lost forever. And I say to him, you know, just as much as you don't know who I am, neither do I. Like, I don't know who I'm becoming either. Like, you're getting to know me at the same time I am. I can't guarantee what that looks like.
And it's confusing to have to lead the way when you're in that space. Yeah. It is emotionally exhausting too. And I can relate to that in my own experience of like trying to help the people around me learn how to be around me. You know, it is a lot, but I also recognize that if I was on the other side, I think I'd be in the same position of not really knowing what to do or how to be, but just wanting to be there. And so I get it from both sides.
And how, Jordy, how has that been for you?
Yeah.
Like, you say, like, you used a lot of your energy supporting other people to know how to be around you. Like, how has that been for you?
I think it's a mixture of things. I think it's sometimes feeling frustrated by it, sometimes feeling tired. I would say, like, in my marriage, and my husband's obviously like in here listening, but he would agree with me. I'm typically the one who's like guiding us through the like very emotional conversations, and I just have less to give than I did before. And so it's sort of required us to be like, okay, like, where else can you get some support? How can we build things in, right? Like, maybe going to a young adult caregiver cancer support group would be really helpful for you. Maybe us going to couples therapy would be really helpful, right? Finding a therapist that specializes in grief or terminal illness or whatever it might be. Leaning on your friends and family, like just broadening the support network, I feel like has been important and also challenging. You know, it's like hard to change the dynamic that's been there for a long time. And I obviously don't want to see people in pain. And I know that none of the things that they're doing are malicious. It all comes from love and like wanting to protect themselves or protect me. And so I think I'm like grateful to be a therapist and have the tools I have and have that perspective, because I can imagine it being really, really challenging if I didn't have that, to be able to step back and be like, oh man, like he's going through a really hard time, right? Like I'm going through a hard time, but he's watching all of this happen right next to me. And like, that's hard.
Mm-hmm. And you know what you were saying there, like about widening the support group pool, and that's hard in itself, because in that is loss, right? Because maybe formerly you might have been the support for each other and wholly would have been enough.
Yes.
Right? And to admit that actually we can't be there in our whole supporting selves without needing anyone else but us.
Yeah.
Is still a loss in itself, isn't it?
Completely. It changes, like you said, changes and rearranges every piece of you, and then in return, every interaction and relationship that you have with your people in your life. There's no way for it to not impact and have that like ripple effect. So yeah, it's challenging. And I was going to say, I was looking at your Instagram this morning, and you had posted something about, I think it was like feeling like you had missed out on the newborn stage of your daughter's life because you were just like kind of like in shock that you were in it. And I, as someone who, and this has nothing to do with my diagnosis, but I struggled with like postpartum depression, and things were like hard in my marriage, and I felt the exact same way. And so just like hearing you put words to that, even though our situations are so completely different, it was just really helpful. And it was just another reminder that like everyone's going through something hard, and that loss and change are a part of life, and they can feel really scary and lonely. But if you can find the right people, there's a tribe out there that will get you.
Oh, there is. There really is. It puts a whole new meaning on find your tribe, doesn't it, when you go through something hard?
Yes, it really does.
It's no longer like glitter and fucking stardust. It means something so much more than that.
It's so, no, that's not what you need in your tribe. Well, I want to say thank you so much. I guess my one question, because Erica had to hop off because she had a client she needed to see, but the question that we ask everyone at the end of our time with them is, if you, Emma, now could go and speak to Emma in the deepest, darkest moments of your experience with grief and loss, what would you want her to know? What would you tell her?
Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Because there's moments where you really don't think that you're going to survive how you feel. And that you will learn how to ride the waves. Doesn't stop them coming.
Right.
But you will get better at riding them.
Yep.
I'm sorry you've got to ride them, but I can promise you they're not going to stop coming. So we have to get better surfers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I like the analogy. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I so appreciate it. It was so lovely to meet you. And obviously, as someone in Erica's life, I'm just so grateful that people like you are out there and, so ready and willing and available and passionate about supporting other people going through just something so horribly tragic.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been lovely to meet you.
It was so nice to meet you.
And
So that was a really nice conversation with Emma, and I hope everyone listening, even if you're not in the TFMR community, can understand the different layers of grief. And if you are in the TFMR community, then I'm sure this was very refreshing to hear, just like someone else's story. So thanks for listening along, and you can follow Emma on Instagram at TFMR Mamas. And you can also find her online where she leads support groups at tfmrmamas.com. And she also has 2 Facebook groups.
She has so many resources. That was one of the things that was so cool.
Yeah.
And it's cool that you benefited from her resources and that it just, I don't know, the whole thing was just awesome to see.
Yeah. So I hope that there are many people who can find it who need this episode.
Yeah.
So we are still in Boston.
Still in Boston, everyone.
And
it's really hot outside.
It's really muggy. It's like a sauna.
It just feels
not a sauna. It's a steam room.
A steam room, yeah. It's like the air is just thick with heat.
Wet heat.
Yeah. Feels assaulting.
Yeah. So Jordy's going to be out of commission for a while, and we're doing a family trip to Cape Cod. And so we will be
going to Cape Cod. Originally, I booked us a house
Plymouth
elsewhere.
Rock, which makes sense. Plymouth.
Yeah.
Plymouth Rock, not Cape Cod. But Jordy didn't know. I didn't know. So I'm asking everyone, where
in Cape Cod should we go?
That is family friendly.
Yeah.
Walkable, cute beachy town.
Yeah, access to the beach.
And restaurants. Yeah. That's what we're looking for. Thanks.
Appreciate that.
And also yesterday, Jordy and I were doing some business planning stuff.
I was grilling into Erica a little bit.
I know. I don't know what got into Jordy.
Well, it's funny because it started with you saying, I need coffee. And I was like, okay, sounds good. Should we bring our computers? And you were like, yeah, you can take the Colby index.
Right, which is the idea is you answer all these questions, and then it tells you how you spend your time and energy and how you approach life and how you approach work. And it can be it measures you in 4 different domains, and it can help you understand yourself more. And I've done it. my husband's Ramsey has done it. And we actually have a friend whose dad is like certified in like reading people's Colby. And he interpreted mine and Ramsey's together. And like our whole relationship made sense. Like me as a person made sense. And I was like, Jordy, you should do it. Because like, why not?
But it's kind of funny because they sort of tell you not to do it when you're in like a transition.
Yeah. So like period. So it tells you, it like shoots out results. But sometimes people get an asterisk, which means it's not a valid like index. And
like it means your answers were inconsistent.
Right.
Yeah.
So either you're trying to cheat the system or what people say, like they're usually in transition. So like going through loss or like major life changes. And like you would think Jordy's would come out that way. But no, it actually...
No, I didn't.
Yours was asterisk.
And I think like Erica was watching me approach the questions and she like learned a lot about me.
How you just answer the questions
was like very telling in what my results were.
Yes. It was really, I was like, oh, you're like very systematic. Even like you think through all of the things. Like, you know, I just like answer questions, but you had a system in place.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of hard because the way it asks the questions is it asks the questions and then it gives you 4 options and it says, what are you most likely to do and what are you least likely to do?
Yeah.
And it was, Erica was saying her way of approaching it would be like, do most like focus on one.
Yeah, I would say like, what am I most likely? And then I'd focus on what am I least likely. But Jordy would be like, I need to like think about the pair.
The whole picture.
Which is probably like a way better way of doing it.
I don't think it's better or worse. It's just a different approach.
Yeah.
But what we learned at the end of the
it's really funny.
The test is like, we're the same.
Yeah, we have like this same
domain.
Like we approach life the same way,
which makes a lot of sense. And it was saying like people who approach life the same way or like get the same types of results tend to either have like inertia, or they tend to butt heads and like feel like envious or competitive.
Yeah, we're like not the latter.
Like, oh, we don't feel that way, but like we definitely get each other. But we were joking, like we had this idea for a podcast and like me and Erica would have researched
and like sat on it
maybe years. We would have been like, you know what, like I don't know if now's the right time, like we should maybe look into which equipment we'll need. Like we would have gotten detailed oriented and then like never executed. And like Hank hasn't taken the index yet, but
yeah, we know
he executes on things. Like he makes things happen. And without him, we would have never probably done this.
No, and like we just told him the idea, and then like the next day he was
all the accounts existed.
Yeah, and I was like, I felt so overwhelmed. Oh yeah, so we were on Newberry Street looking for coffee the other day, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna find a coffee shop, and Jordy's like, look, there's one right there,
like right where we're standing,
and I was like, oh, okay, sure, we can go to this coffee shop.
To be fair, I looked it up and it had like very good reviews. It had 1,800 reviews, 4.7 stars.
Yeah, so we start walking down the stairs and I felt like really uncomfortable. like this feeling just didn't sit well within me. And then I realized, oh, it's because like I didn't research enough. Like I want to do like a top view, research all the best coffee shops, spend at least 5 minutes reviewing, like 1 minute per each place, and then read the top review and then the least, like the worst reviews. And it felt so weird for me to just like go down the stairs and get coffee.
And like I didn't have any anxiety about it.
But to be fair, you don't like coffee.
No, so what I said was, oh, I feel that way about a lot of things. I think when I don't care about something, it's really easy for me to just be like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's just choose whatever.
Like, but if it's dessert, you're going to want to look. So anyway, with Cape Cod, we spent like an hour and a half researching things. Never booked anything.
No, we didn't book anything. We also like consulted Erica's family that lives in Massachusetts, like got on like a text group chain.
Yeah,
like we asked all of the nurses and doctors today.
You're right. And now I'm going to ask you all.
Yeah, where do we go, guys? Because we're just going to lean into our research heavy personality approach. But yeah, it was funny. I actually came out a little bit more heavy on the research than you. which sounds surprising, but I am a little bit more risk averse. So I think it makes sense that I
have a little bit higher for like a quick start. So it's like I research enough and then it just like
you like jump into it more.
Yeah, a little bit riskier, but then like I don't follow through.
Our follow through was sort of the same.
It was the same. Exactly.
So like it's not a bad thing. It basically, what I liked about this was it didn't say like, okay, and this is what you can do to like get higher and quick start.
No.
This is what you can do to get high. It's like, no, this is who you are. Lean into your strengths.
Right.
And so I really liked that and appreciated it.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested.
Yeah, you should take the Kolbe Index. It was
KOLBE.
Yes. Kolbe A, right?
Kolbe A, because then the Kolbe C is if you're in, like if you have your own business, you can give it to your employees.
Got it.
And then it can, you can use it as a way to like figure out like, is this person like a right fit for the role? Or like, is this the role that they should be in within the company? It's kind of cool. So anyway, that was interesting. And like, what other fun things did we learn?
Oh, we've gotten a lot of comments that we look like sisters.
Oh my gosh, everyone on this trip
has said that. And it's funny because the doctor today was like, you guys look more like sisters than my own twins.
That's pretty wild.
And we were like, that's weird.
And that's you without
I don't even have hair. And we look alike.
That's so wild.
Yeah. So then I read something where it said like,
okay, but where did you read this?
So this is one of those things where like, you see something on Instagram.
Yeah. So it's fake news.
It might be fake news, but I kind of want to believe that it's true.
Okay.
It said that you tend to gravitate towards people who you share a little bit of DNA with.
Oh.
Yeah. So like very, very close friends that get along really well. Sometimes if you like were to look into
So should we do a DNA test?
Well, here's the thing. We're both on 23andMe and I didn't get you.
Yeah, I didn't get you either.
So
unless we didn't dig deep enough.
I don't know if it does like fourth or fifth cousins. Like, I don't know how extensive it goes. And if it shows you people you're 1% related to, probably not.
No, maybe I should do a deep dive.
We need to like go take an actual DNA test.
Yeah. And then like compare DNA.
Yeah. And then compare it. But yeah, it's just been a really nice trip.
It has.
Yeah.
I'm like many times a day, I'm like, but why are we here?
Yeah. It's sort of strange because like I mentioned, I think in a previous one of these, like I feel like I could have been doing all of this at home.
Right.
I couldn't have. And it was made very clear to me that I couldn't have today when I got to the doctor's office. And she's like, I called you yesterday.
Yeah, she thought you fled.
Yeah, she's like, and you didn't answer. So then I called your husband. And then I realized maybe I panicked and I shouldn't have called your husband. She's like, I just wanted to make sure you didn't like fly home.
Yeah.
Like, no, I was aware that I wasn't allowed to leave. So yeah, I had to be here to like have this happen. But the things that we're doing, just like we're like walking around and exploring and watching movies and ordering food and hanging out.
Yeah, it feels like we're on vacation.
It feels like we're on vacation.
But then like not also.
Not also. But then like I feel like the last few times you and I have been on vacation alone, it's kind of been a disaster.
Because
okay, so we went on like a Galentine's Day trip with our children.
Oh, that's not alone.
Okay, fine. Then Erica got the stomach flu. Then and gave it to all of us.
Yeah.
Then to me,
actually no,
Emma gave it to you.
Yes.
It was really bad.
It was really bad.
Yeah. Then,
the time before that, I just randomly started throwing up.
No, that wasn't the time before. Then we went on another trip as a redemption trip.
Oh yeah,
without our children.
And then
to Laguna Beach. Yeah, and then she like
got sick all day.
Yeah, she was like, oh, like, I'm just feeling a little weird. I'm like, are you going to throw up? She's like, no, I'm not going to throw up. And then she's gone for like 20 minutes. I'm like, she's for sure throwing up. She comes back. She's like, I threw up.
And I couldn't even eat that dinner.
She couldn't eat the dinner. She was like
weird
unwell by the pool. Like she needed a smoothie. Like it was just like intense. Yeah.
It sucked.
Yeah. So like, I feel like that was the last time. And then again, we went on another trip with the babies, which was fun, except for they slept horribly.
Oh, yeah.
And
Emma pooped in the middle of the night.
Pooped in the night. Brody was sleeping in the bathroom. Like, it was kind of a disaster. We still had fun, of course.
Of course.
But it just, like, wasn't, like, relaxing.
Yeah.
And it's just funny that this was, like, the first time that we've gone on a vacation where it's, like, relaxing.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
But it's, like, brain surgery.
Right. It's, like, really
brain surgery.
freaking intense. And, like, getting ready to be hospitalized again.
Yeah.
Like a day.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just been like it's it's weird juxtaposition, like having a really good time
compounded with
like knowing that I'm about to go into the hospital for 2 weeks and be pretty unwell.
I know, like we went to your doctor's appointment this morning and then they told you all the things that's going to happen to you. And then we're like, okay, let's go out for our breakfast.
Yeah. We like went to this like cute little French cafe and like got some books for the kids. And
it's like, that's life, I guess.
Yeah, it is. We went on a hunt for the best lemonade.
Oh, we got it,
I think we did. He was very kind.
It's at the bottom of Brewer Fountain.
Yes. That's the one.
In Boston.
The tallest, crispest, reddest umbrella you can find.
Yeah, I looked at like 4 lemonade stands and Jordy was along for the ride.
Yeah, for sure. We got some like little chocolates today.
We still have some to eat.
I think we have one left. It's the lemon meringue one, which is probably going to be good.
Yeah, probably.
So that was cool. And then they asked me if I wanted to like participate in a survey.
Oh, right.
About like
in a trial.
It's like a trial, but really it's just a survey about like how you're doing while you're like before you enter the trial, and then like 1 week in, and then, like 3 months in, and then 6 months in, and then I think you're done. And it was just funny because it's asking me questions where it's like, have they told you your prognosis? Is there a possibility for a cure? Obviously, yes, I know my prognosis. No, there's no possibility for a cure, 0% chance. Then it's like, how often are you like feeling like upset about this?
Yeah.
And it's like not much, which just sounds
You're so resilient.
crazy. But I was like, I don't know how to answer these questions. Like, how often are you thinking about like how often are you like unhappy? Like, not often.
And it's not wild how like something so terrible can shake your entire life and you can still be
like happy. Like I wake up.
It's
and
like
I'm
a pretty like great life lesson.
It really is.
I think people look at you a lot and you're like, they're just like, how? Like
I feel like some people think I'm nuts.
they want to like drink what you're drinking. You know?
Yeah, and like I don't feel like I drink the Kool-Aid. Like I don't.
No, you're not delusional.
No, it's like I know. But like what they were saying today, the doctors were saying, oh, like we might have to move your infusion by 1 day. I'm so sorry. Like we were freaking out about it, blah, blah, blah. Not for any reason that actually matters. And it doesn't change anything. And I'm just like, okay.
Right.
And they were like surprised by my reaction. I'm like, I have no control over anything. Like, do you think that's what I'm going to get upset about?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like the 1 day.
I know, it's kind of like, it's a nice like life lesson. It's like a good way to live.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, like literally.
And like sometimes it's nice to sweat the small stuff because it reminds you that like you can have trivial thoughts and like decisions to make. But for the most part, it's kind of nice to just be like,
yeah, like I don't care. It's okay.
Like I don't care. I don't know.
Like I will survive this.
And like I can just like still go get lunch after this and have a nice day with my friend.
It's like definitely a more like peaceful way to live.
It is, yeah. And I know you have to stop. Erica has a session now, so
literally like 90 seconds.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for coming, and I'm really gonna miss you.
I'm really gonna miss you.
And I'll see you on the other side.
That sounds so dark. Love you.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Grief Street. We put out new episodes every Monday. If you'd like to support us, give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to find the video version of our episodes. Please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We would love to hear from you and get some feedback. If you'd like to contact us, please email griefstreetpodcast@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 508-474-3378. That's 508-GRIEFST. Our theme song is Hepcat Jive, courtesy of purpleplanet.com. We'll see you next time.